Okay, so building AI agents that can think, plan, and actually get things done is, let's be honest, one of the coolest things happening in tech right now. But here's the reality check. The hardest part isn't just getting them to work. It's getting them to work reliably and safely when nobody's watching. So how do you really know if your agent is ready for the real world, or if it's just a flashy demo? Well, let's break this down with an analogy that I think really helps. Evaluating a regular LLM is kind of like giving it a school exam. You're testing its knowledge. Does it know the facts? But evaluating an AI agent, that's a whole different ballgame. That's like a full-on job performance review. We're not just asking what it knows, we're asking how it acts. How does it handle tools? How does it make decisions when things get messy?
And trust me, the stakes for getting this right are huge. Just look at this. It shows something called the reliability gap, and it's pretty shocking. You might have an agent that works 60% of the time on a single try, and you might think, hey, that's not so bad. But when you need it to work consistently, say over 8 runs, that success rate can absolutely plummet down to just 25%. And that gap is the difference between a cool prototype and a product people can actually depend on.
So here's our game plan for this explainer. We're going to walk through a complete framework for how to think about this. We'll cover why agents need a totally different kind of report card, and then we'll get into this idea of thinking in trajectories. After that, we'll roll up our sleeves with a practical playbook, talk about the different kinds of graders you can use, touch on what happens when you have a whole team of agents, and then wrap up by looking at the whole evaluation journey. Let's dive in. Okay, so first things first. We have to understand why evaluating an agent isn't just about checking if the final answer is right or wrong. It's so much deeper than that. And here's the core of it. A regular chatbot, it just talks. An agent, though, it acts. It uses tools, it makes API calls, it queries databases, it literally changes the state of systems in the real world. And that's the thing, right? Every single action has real-world consequences, which means we have to judge the result of its actions, not just the words it says. Okay, this next idea is absolutely critical to wrap your head around, the concept of a trajectory. This is all about looking at the entire journey the agent took, not just the final destination it reached. This quote from Anthropic just hits the nail on the head. An agent could easily tell you, yep, your flight is booked, but if you check the airline's database and there's no reservation, the agent failed. Completely. And that's such a powerful takeaway, isn't it? The agent's final message, it's not the actual outcome. And that's why we need to look at the entire agent trajectory, sometimes called a trace. Think of it like the black box recorder from an airplane. It's the complete, unedited log of everything, the agent's thought process, every single tool it called, the data it got back, all of it. It's the only way to know the real story of what happened.
And if you look closer, that whole trajectory is really just a loop, a constant cycle of these 4 key things. First, it looks at the current state. Then, it uses reasoning to figure out a plan. Next, it takes an action, like using a tool. And finally, it makes an observation based on what happened, which feeds right back into the next state. When something goes wrong, it's almost always in one of these 4 steps.
All right, so we've covered the what and the why. Now let's get into the how. We're going to lay out a practical, step-by-step playbook for building out your own evaluation system. Before you even think about writing a test, you got to ask yourself, what does good even look like? The clear framework here is a fantastic way to think about it. It forces you to look beyond just accuracy. You've got to consider cost. How many tokens is this thing burning? Latency. Is it fast enough for users? Efficacy. Did it actually work? Assurance. Is it safe and secure? And reliability. Is it consistent? That's the one we talked about earlier. And this pipeline shows you exactly how to put it all together. The most important advice here, don't try to boil the ocean. You don't need 1,000 tests to start. Just define your 3 to 5 most important user tasks. Create a small, high-quality, golden dataset of maybe 20 or 50 examples. Then you build up from there. Test your tools, build a runner, and maybe even use another LLM to help with grading. The key is that final step. Run it, trace it, and learn from every single failure. Okay, so you've got your tests running. You're collecting all those rich trajectory traces. So who or what is actually going to grade the agent's performance? This table lays out your 3 main options perfectly. You've got code-based graders, which are super fast, cheap, and objective, perfect for checking if a database value is correct. Then there's the LLM-as-a-Judge, which is great for scaling and handling nuance, like judging the quality of a generated email. And finally, you've got human review. It's the gold standard for sure, but it's slow and it's expensive. So the secret sauce?
The pros don't just pick one. They use a hybrid approach, mixing and matching all three to get the best of all worlds.
All right, so if you thought evaluating one agent was tough, what happens when you throw a whole team of them into the mix, all trying to work together?
Yeah, when you get into multi-agent systems, it's a whole new ballgame. Seriously, it's not enough to know if each individual agent can do its job. The focus completely shifts. Now you have to ask a much bigger, more complicated question. How well do they actually work together?
So this means you got to add some new plays to your playbook. You need new metrics, like a planning score, to see if the main agent is delegating tasks smartly. You need to check the handoff appropriateness. Was information passed clearly, or was it a messy game of telephone? And then, of course, the big one, the overall collaboration success rate. Did the team as a whole actually score the goal?
All right, for our last piece, let's zoom all the way out. Because great evaluation isn't a one-time thing you do at the end of a project. It's really a journey, a path of getting more and more sophisticated over time. You can actually think of this whole thing as a journey, right? A maturity model. Most of us start at level 1, just poking at our agent and seeing what happens. Then we get a bit more serious at level 2 and create standardized test sets. Level 3 is where the magic starts, with full automation in your CI/CD pipeline. Level 4 is monitoring in real time, but the holy grail, the place we all want to get to, is level 5. That's where every failure in production automatically becomes a new test case, creating this beautiful continuous learning loop.
So really, the big takeaway here is this. Evaluation isn't a gate you pass through once. It's a discipline. It's a nonstop cycle of testing, watching, and getting better. It's the absolute foundation for building AI systems that you, and more importantly, your users, can actually trust.
And that brings us full circle, right back to where we started. So the next time you're working on an agent, I want you to ask yourself this question. Your agent might have passed the test, but is it actually ready for the job? Because proving it can handle the messy, unpredictable chaos of the real world, well, that requires a whole different kind of performance review.